She doesn't fear him. The Matriarch's bewildered question. The jagged peaks of Wyoming trembled as a sovereignty battlecruiser roared through the morning haze, tearing the pale sky with a screaming wail that rattled the stones. Mark Callan pressed himself low behind a lichen-crusted boulder, the ground thrumming with the impact as the colossal ship tore a blazing path through the pine forest below. Fire and twisted alloy rained from the sky, branches snapping like bones, a tongue of flame licking up in the wake of the crash. Mark felt the tremor deep in his bones, an aftershock of destruction, of history folding in on itself, as the battlecruiser ground to a smoldering halt in a hollow bathed in golden light and swirling ash. His breath came in sharp gasps. He checked his sidearm. Compact, worn, suited for reconnaissance but not much else. The gear on his belt rattled softly. This was supposed to be a scouting run, not a confrontation. He expected a simple pod, a handful of unlucky survivors. But as he edged down the slope, his boots sinking into the soft earth, he saw the symbol scorched into the battered hull, a swirling crest, unmistakable even through the char and soot. This was no scout ship. Mark's pulse quickened. Only one sovereignty vessel bore that sigil, the mark of command, and only one being would ever dare pilot it to the heart of enemy territory, the Azurian matriarch herself. He drew a steadying breath and slipped through a ragged tear in the hull. The interior was chaos, corridors warped and buckled, bathed in the pulse of crimson emergency strobes. Clouds of vapor drifted through the air, thick with the stink of scorched circuitry and something else. A strange floral sweetness, sharp and out of place amid the ruin. Mark's boots clanged softly as he moved, sidearm raised, senses taut as wire. Every sound, the hiss of venting pressure, the distant groan of metal, set his nerves alight. 30 paces in, past shattered consoles and flickering control panels, he found her, Liray Sen. She lay pinned beneath a collapsed support strut, nearly 7 feet of muscle and elegance reduced to battered grace. Her skin gleamed a vivid blue beneath the harsh strobes. Her hair, pink, swept high in a warrior's knot, the sides shaved close, cascaded in tangled waves over one shoulder. Her eyes, molten amber, locked onto him with a predator's focus, bright even through the haze of pain. Blood, the color of midnight sapphires, seeped from wounds on her side and thigh, pooling beneath her. Her breaths came shallow, lips pressed tight against agony. For a moment, Mark froze. Logic screamed at him. End her. Right now. Here. Before she could rise again and raise what was left of his world. But as he met her gaze, something else stirred. She was the architect of devastation, yes, but in this moment she was flesh, bone, and blood. Dying, pinned, vulnerable. He lowered his weapon. Her eyes flickered, caught between confusion and calculation. Human, she managed, the word a strange mix of accusation and wonder, as if tasting it for the first time. He crouched beside her, voice low but steady. You're in shock. Severe blood loss. He stripped a field dressing from his kit, hands moving with automatic precision, the medic in him overriding every other instinct. Liray's lips curled, almost into a smile. You hesitate. Why? Her voice was hoarse, but still carried that old, imperious edge. Mark braced his shoulder against the twisted support beam, boots planted. This'll hurt, he warned. She gave him a look that might have been a challenge. Pain is familiar, she rasped. He heaved. Metal shrieked, echoing through the ruined corridor. Liray's cry, ragged and raw, cut through the din. He gritted his teeth, forcing the beam upward until it gave just enough for her to pull free. She sagged against him, breath hissing between her teeth, blue blood staining his hands. He worked quickly, binding her wounds, fingers moving with practiced care. He checked for broken bones, gently probing her ribs and legs. She watched him all the while, amber eyes unblinking, confusion flickering beneath the surface. "Why?" she asked again, softer this time. "You know who I am?" Mark met her gaze. "I do," he said simply. He slid one arm beneath her knees, the other supporting her shoulders, surprised by her warmth, by the rapid, unsteady beat of her heart against his palm. She was heavier than he expected, yet he lifted her without hesitation. "But right now, you're someone who needs saving." For the first time, Lirai Sen fell silent. He carried her through the ruined corridors, past flames and flickering lights, out into the rising sun and the swirl of golden ash. In his arms, the woman who had nearly destroyed his world drifted on the edge of unconsciousness, her head resting against his chest. As darkness claimed her, Lirai wondered, with the last clarity she had left, why he chose mercy. Consciousness returned slowly, as if rising from the depths of a cold sea. Lirai's eyelids fluttered. The world above her was unfamiliar, unadorned, a plain ceiling, low and painted a soft, faded white, with the faintest spiderweb of old cracks overhead. She lay enveloped in softness. Pillows and blankets cocooned her, their warmth alien to someone whose days were spent in command chairs and whose nights unfolded on the steel slabs of war bunkers. The air smelled of antiseptic, sharp and clean, undercut by pine resin and, strangely, a hint of roasted coffee beans. She inhaled again, testing reality, then lifted her arms with deliberate care. No restraints. Her wrists were bare, skin marred only by old scars and the fresh traces of medical dressings. She flexed her fingers, then pressed her palm to her side. Pain pulsed beneath the bandages, dulled but persistent, a reminder of wounds that should have ended her. A voice cut through the silence, warm but edged with fatigue. "You're awake." Mark Callan sat in a battered wooden chair beside her, a datapad in one hand, its screen flickering with half-finished reports. He set it aside, then reached for her, careful and gentle, arranging the pillows behind her shoulders so she could sit up. The gesture unsettled her, more than any threat would have. She tensed, but he only nodded, as if to reassure her she was safe. "Where am I?" Her voice came out rough, mouth dry as sand. "My cabin," Mark answered. "Just outside your crash site, safest place I could manage." His eyes met hers, steady and guarded. "You're not in a cell. This isn't an interrogation, just a small, quiet home." Lirai took in her surroundings. The cabin was sparse but tidy. A single room, wood-paneled walls bearing the scars of time, a compact kitchen in the corner, shelves lined with battered books and scavenged tech. Beyond a curtain, she glimpsed a small cot. His, she guessed. There were no guards, no cameras, no chains. She frowned. "I don't understand your plan," she said. "What do you gain by helping me?" Mark shrugged, the movement casual but not dismissive. "Maybe I just don't like needless death." Mercy as a strategy. She had seen it wielded before, always as a prelude to betrayal. Compassion as a weapon. That she understood. But Mark was neither naive nor soft. He wore his scars openly, the set of his jaw a soldier's, his posture that of someone who had survived more than one battlefield. He met her gaze. "I know who you are, Lirai Sen. I've seen the reports. Whole systems lost, planets burned, millions gone. You orchestrated it all." His tone was weary, not accusatory, as if recounting the story of someone he no longer wished to hate. She tried to muster anger, or at least the armor of indifference, but found only the ache of exhaustion. A pang, unexpected sharp, bloomed in her chest. Regret. She looked away, unable to hold his eyes. You saved me, she whispered. The words felt heavy, vulnerable. Why? He looked past her, out the small fogged window. Someone has to try something different, he said. Revenge just breeds more revenge, until nobody remembers the reason. I've seen it enough. Lost enough. Lyrae studied him. The strength in his arms, the deliberate way he moved, the network of old scars visible at his wrists and neck. All told stories. This was a man forged in war who had chosen, stubbornly, to step away from it. The days fell into a pattern. Mark tended her injuries each morning, hands deft as he changed dressings and checked the healing flesh beneath. He brought her food, simple fare, eggs and bread, foraged greens, once a steaming bowl of soup with a flavor she could not name, but found oddly comforting. He never questioned her about the sovereignty, never demanded secrets or strategies. Instead, he offered quiet company, the kind that did not press or judge. At dusk, he sat beside her, reading from his battered datapad. Once, she asked, "What are you studying?" He showed her the display. Old military treatises, diagrams of battles fought centuries ago. "Tactics, old Earth generals," he replied. She recognized a phrase, faintly amused. "Victory without battle is best." "You read Sun Tzu?" He offered a tired smile. "The classics survive for a reason." She watched him, curiosity overcoming suspicion. "Why did the sovereignty bypass Earth?" he asked one evening, the question gentle, almost academic. She hesitated, then answered honestly. "Too much trouble for too little gain. Your planet is remote. Your people fractious. We chose easier targets." He accepted her answer without resentment. That, too, unsettled her. "You don't hate us for what we did?" "I hate what happened," Mark said quietly. "But hating you, that's just another cycle." One night, when the sky outside was a deep indigo and the pines whispered with wind, Lyrae broke the quiet. "What taught you about cycles?" she asked. Mark hesitated, gaze clouding with memory. She pressed. "You treat me like a person. I want to know why." He took a long breath, as if weighing whether to answer. Finally, he said, "We're shaped by what we survive. I lost people, family, friends, over and over. At some point, I realized I could keep fighting, or I could try to change something, even if it's just one moment." The simplicity of it shook her. She, who had commanded fleets and broken worlds, had never heard anyone speak of survival in such plain terms. As the days blurred, Lyrae's strength returned. She could stand, then walk, leaning on Mark's arm as they paced the cramped living room. He never hurried her, never patronized. He treated her pain with the same seriousness as her presence. A fact, not a flaw. She warned him one evening as a cold wind rattled the shutters. "You know Earth's leaders will want me, for interrogation, or worse." Mark met her gaze, something unbreakable in his voice. "They'll have to get through me first." The certainty in his tone startled her. It was not bravado. It was a simple statement of fact, as if he could not imagine doing otherwise. For a moment she saw not an enemy soldier, but a guardian. Someone who had chosen mercy and meant it. As dusk settled around the cabin, painting the room in bands of gold and shadow, Lyrae found herself wondering when she had last felt safe. The question lingered as she lay back against the pillows. Mark's quiet presence anchoring her in a world that had once been nothing but war and loss. For the first time in memory, she let her eyes close willingly, drifting toward sleep, her last thought not of escape or vengeance, but of the strange, unyielding kindness that had changed the shape of her captivity. On the fifth morning, Lyrae Sen stood for the first time. Her legs trembled, muscles tight and foreign beneath the borrowed fabric of Mark's clothes, a faded shirt, worn canvas pants cinched at the waist. Her wounds still ached, but pain had become a quiet companion, no longer the raging presence that had haunted her sleep. She crossed the small cabin, moving carefully, guided by shafts of sunlight that spilled across the wood floor. She found Mark at the makeshift table by the window. He sat hunched, surrounded by scattered images, some printed, some projected on thin glass, all meticulously arranged in chronological rows. Gleaming cities with spires that pierced the clouds, crystalline towers shining beneath alien suns. But as her gaze moved across the table, the beauty shifted to devastation. Broken landscapes, blasted soil, the jagged skeletons of ruined metropolises. The final image was the worst. A wasteland, cold and red, twin moons hanging in a poisoned sky. Astra 4. A world she had ordered razed. Mark's eyes lingered on that last image, his jaw set, hands gripping the table's edge hard enough to make his knuckles pale. Yet when he spoke, his voice was calm, steady as stone, but with a tremor beneath it, as if every word cost him something. Lieutenant Mark Callan, Nova 9 Defense Corps. He hesitated, forcing himself to go on. Only survivor from the exodus of Lys. The air grew tight, pressing in around them. Lirai remembered. The last ship escaping the inferno, its engine screaming as it slipped past sovereignty blockade. A handful she let go, a tactical decision in the midst of carnage. Mark had been on that vessel. She had spared him once, and in some strange twist of fate, he had hunted her ever since. "And when you found me," she said, voice low, "you saved me." He nodded, the word heavy, as if it weighed more than any weapon he'd ever held. "Yes." Lirai stared at him. The room felt suddenly too small, the walls closing in. "I don't understand," she whispered, the admission clawing at her pride. Mark's eyes met hers, shining with an emotion she couldn't name. Grief, maybe, or the long shadow of loss. "Neither do I," he murmured. A silence fell between them, thick with all the things left unsaid. Lirai's mind spun back over every order, every system she'd shattered. She recited them, voice steady at first, then faltering as the list grew. Astra 4, Helion, Vera Prime, entire populations gone. Her words hung in the air, sharp as knives. Mark listened. He acknowledged each name, each atrocity, not with hatred but with exhaustion, as if the burden of memory weighed equally on them both. "Then why spare me?" she asked. Her voice cracked, the last word almost lost in the quiet. "Why not finish it?" He moved to kneel before her, the gesture unguarded and human. His hand found hers, fingers rough and warm against her cool blue skin. "Because vengeance won't bring them back. Because I'm tired of emptiness. Because now, looking at you, I see someone just as lost as I am." She leaned into his touch, feeling the tremor in his hands, the pain he carried beneath his gentle words. "I don't know how to be different," she whispered. The confession was raw, a secret even she had never spoken aloud. "Neither did I," he said softly. "Maybe we can learn together." He reached up and brushed away the tears she hadn't realized had fallen, his thumb lingering at her cheekbone. "I'll love you anyway." The word hung between them, luminous and fragile, a bridge stretched over an abyss of old wounds. She shook her head, voice ragged with doubt. "You can't love me. You don't know everything I've done. You don't know what I am." Mark's hand tightened around hers, eyes fierce. "Then show me." He wanted the truth, not the mask. So she let him see. She shared her memories, her mind a storm of star maps and casualty lists, names and numbers that haunted her every night. The destruction she'd wrought, cities burning under her orders, the emptiness that followed every victory. Mark watched, his jaw clenched, shoulders rigid, but he did not pull away. not even as her voice broke under the weight of her own history. "Tell me about your first command," he said, after a long silence. She blinked, surprised by the gentleness in his question. "Vera Prime," she replied, voice far away. "I was young. I thought power meant respect. I was wrong. I tasted victory, but all I felt was fear. Of myself. Of what I'd done. After that, I learned to bury my doubts. It was easier to be a weapon." He nodded, the lines at his brow softening. "What was your name before all this?" he asked. She hesitated, the answer trembling on her lips. "Lyrae," she whispered, the word so small it almost vanished. Mark smiled, soft and genuine. "And what did you want? Before the war?" She let her mind wander back, to a time before she'd become a symbol. "To see new worlds? To learn? I loved the stars once." Her eyes met his, pleading. "Is it too late?" Mark reached out, taking her hand in both of his. His warmth bled through her skin, anchoring her. "Maybe it's not too late. Not for either of us." He pressed his lips to her knuckles, gentle and reverent, as if she were something precious and unbroken. She closed her eyes, holding on to that fragile hope for one breath, then another. Suddenly, the comm unit on the table crackled to life, shattering the peace between them. Static flared, then a clipped voice. "Unidentified transmissions detected. Sovereignty fleet inbound. Arrival in 20 minutes." Lyrae's face drained of color. Her heart thudded in her chest, fear and adrenaline colliding. She knew that tone, the cold certainty of pursuit. Mark was already moving, grabbing his sidearm and slinging a battered pack over his shoulder. He scanned the horizon through the window, body taut with purpose. "We need to move," he said, voice all business now. But as he looked at her, his gaze softened for just an instant. "I'm not leaving you. Not now." Lyrae nodded, forcing herself to her feet. The moment between them, a bridge of confession, hope, and trembling love, held for one more heartbeat, then shattered as the threat of war returned to claim them both. The Sovereignty fleet was 3 hours out. Lyrae stared at the tactical display projected over Mark's battered kitchen table. 6 warships, their cold signatures streaking toward Earth, the lead ship unmistakable. The flagship's contours, sleek and hungry, sent a chill through her. Commander Voss, her former second. She could almost feel his presence from here. Ruthless, ambitious, a man forged by her own hand and loyal only to the regime that now marked her for erasure. Mark's jaw was set, his eyes hard as he studied the incoming formation. The healer she had known the past days was gone, replaced by the soldier, the one who'd survived Exodus and 100 other wounds. He checked his sidearm, his movements efficient and silent. "Then we stop them," he said. There was no hint of doubt in his voice. Lyrae recoiled. The prospect of battle, of becoming what she had tried so desperately to leave behind, twisted inside her. "I can't be that person again, Mark." The confession was small, almost lost beneath the steady hum of the hollow display. He reached for her, hands steady, eyes fierce. "I'm not asking you to destroy," he said. "I'm asking you to protect. This world gave you a chance, Lyrae. It's worth defending." Fear and resolve warred within her. She saw the faces of her victims, the flames of worlds she had incinerated. What if saving Earth meant becoming the monster again? What if she could not stop herself once the violence began? Mark's grip tightened on her shoulders. "We face it together," he said, voice low and certain. "Action or extinction, those are the choices. But you are not alone in this." She closed her eyes, letting his certainty anchor her. At last, she nodded. "If we survive," she whispered, "I want to see the places you spoke of, the ones worth saving." A small, tired smile touched his lips. "I'll take you there. all of them. Their hands found each other, a mismatched pair, rough and calloused, blue and pale, but joined by something stronger than circumstance. Liray moved to the comm station, hands moving swiftly across the cracked interface. She pulled up the quantum link, accessing encrypted Earth defense protocols, her mind leaping through firewalls and security barriers as if they were nothing. She bridged the planet's aging satellites to the approaching sovereignty fleet, a digital ghost threading the needle between civilizations. "It's not enough," she muttered, scanning the fleet's encrypted chatter. "Voss will not relent. I need to be on that ship." Her fingers shook, anticipation and dread warring. "We must get aboard the flagship and turn their weapons inward. Otherwise, Earth burns." Mark's expression was iron. "I'm coming with you." She shook her head sharply. "No, Mark, it's suicide. I know Voss. He'll see through us in seconds. I can't risk your life." He stepped close, his presence overwhelming. "You're not going alone, Liray. Not this time. Whatever happens, we face it together." She wanted to argue, to beg him to stay behind, but his resolve was unbreakable. Instead, she reached for him, and their kiss was urgent, full of everything they could not say. Regret, hope, fear, love. "Together," Mark whispered against her lips. "Always." They slipped through the darkness, moving quickly to the outbuilding that housed Mark's hidden shuttle. The old military craft was patched and weathered, but its stealth systems still purred with dormant power. Inside, the cockpit bathed them in blue light, controls humming to life under Liray's touch. She settled into the co-pilot seat, glancing sideways at Mark as he ran through launch protocols. "When this ends, what then?" He kept his eyes on the readouts. "What do you want?" She hesitated, searching for words she had never needed before. "To be worthy of your trust." The admission was raw, unguarded. He reached across the console, squeezing her hand. "You already are, Liray." Their shuttle lifted off, soundless against the midnight sky, slipping through Earth's fragile defensive grid. Stars wheeled overhead, vast and indifferent. Mark piloted with quiet confidence, hands steady, gaze sharp. The comm crackled, a burst of static followed by a familiar voice. "Voss," clipped and precise. "Unidentified vessel. Transmit authorization codes. This is Sovereignty Fleet Command." Liray drew in a breath, the years of command sliding into place like armor. She straightened, her voice shifting. Icy, regal, impossible to disobey. "This is Liray Sen, Matriarch of the Sovereignty, requesting emergency docking. Stand by for override clearance." A pause, just long enough for doubt to flicker. Voss's tone returned, wary but edged with ambition. "Matriarch Sen, your signal is unexpected. State your purpose." She fixed her gaze on the stars. "Fleet integrity compromised. I have urgent intelligence. Prepare for my arrival, Commander Voss." There was a tension in the silence that followed, then a cold acceptance. "Proceed, Matriarch." Docking clearance granted. As the shuttle banked toward the flagship, Mark's hand found hers again. She looked at him, her fear mirrored in his eyes. "Ready?" he asked softly. She let herself believe for a heartbeat that she could be more than what she had been. "With you?" she said, voice steady. "Yes." The flagship loomed ahead, a blade of silver and black against the stars, as Liray and Mark faced the impossible, together. The docking bay was a gauntlet. Rows of sovereignty guards in black and silver armor snapped to attention as Liray descended the shuttle ramp, every gaze sharp, every rifle at ready. Mark followed 2 steps behind, wrists bound in a show of submission. His eyes swept the hangar, reading exits, counting threats. His posture a masterclass in the role of silent, grim prisoner. Inwardly, he mapped every bolt and shadow, every face turned toward the infamous matriarch. At the base of the ramp, Commander Voss waited, flanked by his officers. His smile was all teeth and calculation, predatory in its confidence. Matriarch Sen, he purred, inclining his head with mocking deference. We had not expected such an illustrious guest. His gaze flicked to Mark, curiosity thinly veiled by contempt. And you bring a pet. Lyrae met his stare, cold and unreadable. I bring what I require, she replied, her tone glacial, her mask flawless. She moved with imperial grace, the matriarch resurrected for this final play. Voss gestured, and the guards parted. Come, we have much to discuss. He led them from the hangar, his boots ringing on the metal deck. As they walked, Mark caught Lyrae's eye, brief, silent affirmation passing between them. They had rehearsed every possibility, every risk. They entered Voss's quarters, a gallery of conquest. Relics from a dozen worlds lined the shelves, a crystalline skull from Amara, the woven flag of Vera Prime, shattered fragments of the Lycian beacon. Lyrae's gaze lingered on each, remembering victories that had cost more than she'd ever admit. Voss noticed. Reminders of your glory, matriarch, he said, voice oily with pride. The galaxy still quakes at your shadow. She smiled faintly, masking her disgust. The past is dust, Commander. Only victory matters now. Voss circled, studying Mark with predatory curiosity. And this one? He asked. A souvenir? Or a bargaining chip? Mark kept his eyes lowered, jaw clenched. Lyrae answered coolly. He has knowledge of Earth's defenses, more than our scans have revealed. He is useful, for now. Voss considered, then nodded. Very well. Sit. He motioned to the side table where decanters glinted. Let us plan the end of this stubborn world. They sat. Voss poured a crimson liquor, sliding a glass to Lyrae. To annihilation, he toasted. She raised her glass, untouched, eyes never leaving his. Voss leaned back, smug and relaxed. How many ships do they have? How soon will they break? Mark spoke, his voice rough with practiced defeat. Earth's defenses are spread thin. Automated satellites only, with 3 functional planetary cannons. Shield grid is compromised at the poles. Target those, and your landing parties will face minimal resistance. He spoke just enough truth to be convincing, enough fiction to lead Voss astray. Voss's eyes glittered with anticipation. Excellent. I will see to it personally. He keyed a command into his wrist console, sending attack vectors to the bridge. Soon, the sovereignty will erase the last stain of rebellion. All the while, Lyrae was moving, slow and deliberate, toward the tactical console mounted on the wall. Her fingers brushed the interface, silent as memory. Lines of code danced across her vision. She knew these systems. She had designed them once. Now she would undo them. Tell me, Commander, she said, voice silky with menace. What's the price for betrayal? Voss froze, recognition dawning too late. What? He lunged toward the alarm, but Mark was faster. The knife slid from his sleeve in a blur, finding the gap in Voss's armor just beneath the ribcage. Voss gasped, collapsing to his knees, blood blooming across his tunic. Lyrae's hands flew across the console. It's useless, she said, not even glancing at the dying man. I've locked every system you once called yours. Voss clawed at the floor, reaching for a calm. You're dooming us all. She finished rewriting the fleet's protocols. Shields collapsed. Command hierarchy looped back to her control. The warship's main guns swiveled, targeting their own. On the tactical displays, the sovereignty fleet became a nest of serpents devouring themselves. I've always run toward war, Lyrae said, her voice steady, eyes burning with a new kind of fire. Now I have something to defend. Explosions blossomed on the main view screens. Hulls ruptured in silence, fire and vacuum swallowing Voss's fleet ship by ship. The flagship's own escorts opened fire, obeying her rewritten commands, tearing each other apart. Within minutes, the armada was nothing but drifting wreckage and dying embers. The planet below was untouched, serene in the face of apocalypse. Voss coughed, blood at his lips. Unthinkable, he rasped, eyes locked on the devastation. Mark stepped to Liray's side, awe and pride in his eyes. He watched the woman who had once brought terror become the architect of her own rebellion. Not unthinkable, he said softly, human. The last of the fleet died in the void. Silence returned to the command suite, broken only by Voss's final rattling breath. Liray stood over him, no triumph in her gaze, only exhaustion and a fierce, quiet hope. She turned to Mark, hands shaking as adrenaline faded. "It's over," she said. The words a release, a prayer. Mark took her hand in both of his, grounding her. "We're free." She squeezed his fingers, drawing strength from the contact. Her eyes met his, defiance and yearning mingling in their depths. "Let's give them something new to fear," she said, a challenge and a promise all at once. Outside, Earth turned in peace, the sky unmarred by the threat of sovereignty fire. Inside, two survivors, no longer destroyer and victim, but something braver, stood side by side, dreaming of a future as guardians instead of ghosts. Half a year later, Liray stood on the curved observation deck of their hybrid vessel, her silhouette framed by the glass dome as twin moons rose above the swirling colors of a nebula. The ship's hull gleamed silver and sapphire, Azurian alloys blending seamlessly with the rugged engineering of Earth. Sleek, fast, beautiful. Unlike anything either species had flown before. Through the transparent hull, starfields drifted by, cool blue and gold, the promise of new worlds written in every shimmering speck. Liray rested her palms on the railing, letting the hum of engines beneath her feet echo in her bones. Mark joined her, the soft tread of his boots familiar and grounding. He leaned against the rail beside her, silent for a moment, watching the moons climb higher. His presence steadied her thoughts, as it always did. One touch, one look, enough to chase away the ghosts that sometimes circled in the quiet. He broke the silence first, his voice gentle. "Regrets?" she considered, eyes fixed on the nebula's violet glow. "About leaving the known worlds?" "No." She let the words hang in the starlit air. "About everything else?" "Sometimes." Mark's hand brushed hers, thumb tracing the lines of her blue skin. "We made the only choice we could." She nodded, remembering the moment Earth's leaders demanded her fate. Some wanted to punish, some to use, a few to keep her as a symbol or weapon. Mark had chosen for them both: refusal, exile, freedom. They'd taken this vessel and vanished into the stars, carrying the secrets of two civilizations in their hearts. Liray turned to study his profile, the scars at his jaw, the determination in his gaze. "The sovereignty will send more," she warned. "They'll never forgive us for what we did, or what we've become." Mark shrugged, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Let them come. Earth is ready now." He nodded toward the distant blue dot on the nav display. "We left them with more than hope: hybrid ships, new strategies, a chance to stand on their own." A low chime sounded from the console behind them. Mark reached for a datapad and handed it to her, the screen aglow with technical readouts and personnel rosters. First hybrid squadrons are operational, human ingenuity, Azurian tech. Crews already pushing the envelope, making things work I never even dreamed of. Liray's lips curled into a real smile. She scrolled through the datapad, recognizing names, pilots she'd trained, engineers who'd once looked at her with fear. Now, their messages were filled with determination, pride, even gratitude. She handed the datapad back to Mark, a soft laugh escaping her. The destroyer is now a protector. Who would have guessed? He grinned, the lines at the corners of his eyes deepening. We've taught them more than tactics, Lyrae. We've taught them forgiveness. She remembered the early days when suspicion haunted every meeting, when every step outside the ship's hull felt like a test of loyalty. But as months passed, and as Earth's defenders learned from her and Mark, something changed. Forgiveness took root, slow and tentative. It grew in the quiet hours of training, in the chaos of simulated battles, in the laughter that sometimes broke the tension after a mission well flown. A sudden, insistent ping cut through the calm, an emergency beacon, sharp and urgent. Lyrae turned, scanning the message as it scrolled across the main screen. Distress signal, Orion Sector, she said. Civilian colony under siege. Local forces requesting aid. Mark checked the star charts, fingers moving across the console. How far? She traced the route in her mind, calculating distance and fuel. 3 days. Maybe 2, if we push the engines. He nodded. Set a course. We'll get there. She stood for a moment, gazing out at the vastness of space, feeling the old urge to explore tug at her heart. Once, she'd seen the stars as targets, lines to be conquered, trophies for the sovereignty. Now, they were possibilities, wonders to be protected, mysteries to be unraveled, lives to be saved. Mark stepped closer, his hand finding hers. Wherever we're needed, he said, voice quiet but sure. Lyrae turned to him, her expression searching. The nebula's light played across his face, turning his brown eyes almost golden. Do you know what you've become to me? Her words were soft, stripped of the old armor. He smiled, a gentle, steady warmth in his eyes. Everything you were meant to be. She laughed, a sound free and bright, the last weight of the past lifting from her shoulders. And what is that? He kissed her hand, just as he had in the darkest days. A guardian. A seeker. My future. Lyrae drew in a slow breath, feeling the truth of it settle inside her. Redemption, she realized, was not erasing the past. It was building something better from its ruins. Every scar, every regret, every terrible choice had led her here. To this moment. To this man. She glanced back once at the image of Earth on the nav screen, blue and green, whole and at peace, spinning quietly in the void. No alarms, no fleets, no fear. They had given her a second chance, and she had given them a way forward. Ahead lay endless adventure. The ship's engines rumbled as Mark set their course, the bow angling toward the unknown. Lyrae felt the anticipation rising, the sense that anything was possible, so long as they faced it together. For the first time in her memory, she was truly home, not on any world, not under any flag, but beside Mark. Defender of worlds, seeker of wonders, loved and loving in return, she was ready for whatever lay ahead. As the hybrid vessel leapt toward the distant stars, Lyrae watched the universe unfold, hope blooming anew in every heartbeat. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.